Hi everybody, I'm Dena and I'm from Albania. I work for the Ministry of Education in Albania, but my heart lies in the Lutheran and Moravian Church here in my country, where I am active since '93. When Anne asked me to record a video on my faith journey, I was a bit concerned because there would be so many things to share, but I think I will focus on the most important things and the things that either changed my life or contributed greatly to my everyday living. I'm sorry I cannot remember everything, but especially from my childhood, but some memories keep coming back. And one of them is in the third grade. I remember when I was in the third grade, I one day came home crying because I refused to say in front of the class that human beings were descendants of apes, and I agreed to take a bed mark for it. And this was just something that I still cannot explain, but so it went. And when I agreed to take this bed mark, I was an excellent pupil. I knew that something was going on, but I didn't know at the time what was going on. I just wanted to follow the truth, and I knew that what they were teaching us in class was not the truth. So it was later on I discovered that actually the truth was Jesus, and he was my savior and friend. I am married and we have a little daughter. She is Zaira, and she is 2.5 years old. My everyday is very much in the Ministry of Education and Sports in Albania, but as I told before, the church has a special place, so I think it's there where I belong. I was not raised a Moravian, actually. I was not raised Christian at all, because as many of you might know, Albania has been a communist country, and during communism all religions were abolished, and Albania is the first country to be declared atheist by constitution. And it was only in the 90s that religions were re-allowed. The way our church started here is nice, and I would like to share this. The church that you know today as Lutheran and Moravian church in Albania, and the church where I'm working and volunteering most of the time, started in '93. And I'm very proud to say that my mother was one of the founders. In '92, she used to work for the Ministry of Education, and they went to Denmark for a conference. And there she met a Moravian missionary, Anker Poulsen, from Denmark. And she started talking to him, and he became interested in our country. And my mother didn't know English by then, but he got interested in a cross that she was wearing, and she managed somehow to tell him that this was a gift from her grandmother, because she was a Catholic. Albania suffered a long period of communism from 44 to 91. And it was really difficult for everybody to practice religion. So the clergy suffered a lot, and most of all the Catholic clergy. It was by '92 that many missionaries came, especially from America and Europe, and they started to plant churches and to share the good news. The Moravian missionary that my mother new in Denmark, when she was back in Albania, he called, and Vjolta, my mother's sister-in-law, she knew English, and he talked to him, and she invited him to come to Albania and talk with us and share with us the good news. And so that's what he did. And when he came to Albania, he immediately loved the country, and it is by then that our church started in very small groups, mainly composed of women and children. So the three founders of our church are women. One of them is my mother, the other one is Vjolta, who is head of board today, and Merita, and they are still very active in the church. We used together in Vjolta's and Merita's homes because we didn't have a place of worship, and we started reading the Bible, singing, and we were introduced to prayer. And following this experience, I started reading the Bible by myself. I started praying by myself, was baptized, and went to children's meetings in our fellowship. And because of being supported initially by both Lutherans and Moravians, our church was called Lutheran and Moravian. To say the truth, I had no clear idea who the Lutherans or the Moravians were at the time, because the church for me was the Church of Christ, and it was only later on that I started reading about it. In 1997, I was sent to Denmark as an exchange student, and there I lived with a Lutheran couple, and whom I still today call my Danish parents. Actually, they had 5 children, and when I went to their house, I was immediately called the 6th child. And the year in Denmark gave me a lot of new insight. It is there that I understood what it means to be a Christian family, to live as a Christian family, to go to church on Sundays, to pray together before eating or pray together before going to bed. And really, I treasure this time of my life because it has contributed so much for my future development. And I realized it later on how much actually it contributed. And my Danish mother, she was a key person in my spiritual growth. It was actually in Denmark that I had this half call of going to Africa as a volunteer, because in Denmark, in Skive, where I was living, I was introduced to many missionaries and volunteers going to serve in Africa, but then I didn't make it. Even though my dad, he has always been a supporter of my decisions and wishes, I didn't make it this time because he was totally against it, and I decided that I would just listen to him. And so I decided to listen to him, and I just locked my African dream in my heart. When I came back in Albania in 1998, my mother was sick, and I discovered that she was going to have surgery, and doctors suspected it was cancer. So I have never been able to describe this moment, and I'm not now. But I remember that I prayed very shortly, and it was just like, God, please don't take her away from us. And he didn't. He really didn't. She had surgery. It went fine. And after a couple of months, doctor said she was well. Cancer or whatever it was gone. And this happened 19 years ago. And I know that God listened to me, and this marks one of my greatest blessings in life. After finishing high school, I went to Italy for studies, and I lived there for some years. And it is since in 2007, when I came back home, that I'm active in the church as a leader, and I lead youth and women, and I arrange camps and different workshops and seminars and conferences, both for youth and women, together with Violza. In 2007, when back from Italy, I was also introduced to Jan Beutler, who is pastor in Albania since 2006. And actually it is him who probably introduced me to the Moravian family and who has constantly stood by me during all this time. Back home in 2007, I discovered I had diabetes type 1, and my anger with God lasted 24 long and very sad hours, and it was tough. I was in the church when I felt bad, and I was immediately recovered to the hospital, and when doctors saw me, they were all surprised. I couldn't understand what was going on because I could see they were worried and concerned, but to cut it short, they couldn't understand how I was still alive with the levels I had in terms of blood sugar, because they told me that a human being cannot handle these kind of levels. So I was not surprised actually, because I know God wanted me to be alive and to serve Him and to continue serving Him. But on the other hand, yes, I was depressed, and when alone in my hospital room, I prayed and I told Him, why me? And I didn't get any answer. Next morning when I woke up, I was smiling and happy, and I was even surprised with myself. I was reborn in the promise that God was there with me, standing by me. And I just had diabetes. Nothing was wrong with God. He still loved me, and He still cared about me. I would go back to my normal everyday. I would take insulin, even though it meant that I would take the medicine for 4 or 5 times a day. But and it has been so since that day. I decided that with God by my side, I would take diabetes as a friend, and God had showed me once that He is an awesome God, and He would be with me even in difficult time. I have to admit that I'm also very blessed to have a husband that has always supported me, because it is not very easy to live with diabetes, but He's there by me every time I need Him. In 2009, our church was officially accepted in the Moravian Church during a conference of mission organizations of our province, and it was a great day. It was held in Tirana, and I'm very proud to say that we immediately found our identity in the Moravian Church. It is during this conference, at the ending service, that I announced to everybody, to the whole congregation, that I had the call of serving God differently, and that I thought and felt I was called to become a minister. And I remember very well that day and the way I used to tremble. But anyway, it took me 4 more years of prayers and listening to God's voice, and yes, now I have decided that I would pursue my call, and I will definitely answer to God. During this time, I've had many sisters and brothers encouraging me, and Jan and Violza have been my main supporters, and they have waited patiently until the day that I said, yes, okay, now I'm ready, and I want to become a minister, to start studying. When I first announced it, actually, my dad was skeptical, my uncle was skeptical, many relatives and friends, they were skeptical too, but I decided that this is what I would like to do, and as time went by, they understood, and that they understood actually that this was something coming from my heart. It was not about me, it was not about a job or something like that. It is God's job. So God had called me to do His job on earth, and I was just following Him. Coming back to my African dream, Jan knew that I had locked Africa in my heart, and it is in 2012 that he invited me to join a trip that he was arranging to Denmark. So I joined a trip of Danish sisters and brothers in Tanzania, where we spent about 3 weeks. I will say that experiencing Africa, the red dust and that kind of love changed my heart. And it is in Africa that God worked in me, and He also told me that, or better, He made me understand why He didn't want me to go to Africa many years ago, because He knew that I would not leave the country anymore. And of course, by then I didn't know God had other plans, that He wanted me to come back to Albania and study and serve Him and become a minister and serve in the Albanian church. So I left a huge part of my heart in Tanzania, but anyway, I now know that God had a better plan for me, and this is His plan, that I serve in the church here where I'm probably most needed. It is in 2013 that I met Patty Garner, and it was like God had designed all this, because I had no idea what He had in plan for my future. I was supposed to attend the European conference held in Albania, European Women Conference, but I didn't make it. I was pregnant and I had a miscarriage, and again the world felt upon my shoulders, and again my anger with God lasted only 24 hours. Very sad hours, but Patty was sitting next to Wielca in the bus, and this is what they told me afterwards. And Wielca was very sad from the news I gave her, and she probably started crying, and Patty was there to encourage her and to and she immediately started praying with her, and it is since that day that she has continued to pray about me. But it is not about this. The most beautiful thing is that she started praying for someone that she didn't know at all. So it is since then that Patty has a great place in my heart. But anyway, soon God would show His face again, and in 2014 He blessed us with Zaira, our daughter, and she is the greatest blessing of our lives. And last year she was baptized. Jan baptized her, and it was, of course, it was a special day, but it was also a great day, because she marked actually the third generation of women to get baptized in our church. So first was my mother, and then me, and now Zaira. In 2015, Wielca and I attended the 12th Women's Conference in Maryland, and from there we went to Winston-Salem. And there we we stood at Patty and Hal's home, and they opened their home and made us feel as part of the family, and we had a great time together. And one day we were sitting in the living room, and Hal, he told us about Patty's journey towards ordination, all the challenges and all her wishes and desires, and it was just amazing, because I was so touched, and I started crying, and it was a real encouragement for me, because of course by then I knew that I wanted to study theology and to continue with my ministry in the church, and hopefully one day be ordained. But it was very important for me to hear how someone else years ago experienced almost the same spiritual journey. I still cry when I think of this moment, because I really don't know what happened, but I was very touched. It was not only Patty and Hal, also an American group of brothers and sisters called Task Force, Albanian Task Force. They encouraged me, and they gave me motivation, and they have been a great inspiration since then, in terms of my ministry in the church. Patty was very kind to recommend the seminary in Bethlehem for my studies, and she's the one who introduced me to my professor Craig Atwood, and whom I also had the privilege to meet later on at one of our synods. Recently I have been blessed in special ways, and I'm humbly thankful. I often don't find the words to describe how grateful I am, and again often I ask God, do I deserve all this? Last fall I started studying Moravian theology in Bethlehem in Pennsylvania at the Moravian Theological Seminary, and I was a distant learner. I was very worried before the first class because, well, of course, a new experience. I didn't know how I would feel. I was concerned of feeling a stranger, yeah. But again, God helped me overcome this concern, and because during the first class, Craig said that just for you to know, the answer in this class is always Jesus. So this was enough to make me overcome the worry, and since that day I have been looking so much forward to every coming class. And this spring I studied Moravian history again with Professor Craig Atwood, and to my surprise and great happiness also, I was awarded the Best Student Prize in Moravian History. It was a real surprise, and it was not about the prize, but it was about the whole journey, because it has been a great experience. It has been touching. It has been, in terms of knowledge, I feel so much grown, and this year has contributed so much for my spiritual growth. And I will always be so thankful to Craig Atwood, because he has been amazing in the way that he transmitted me both knowledge and what I had need for in terms of answering my call of becoming a minister. The Moravian Church is a living church, and I know this by now. It's not that I didn't know this before a year ago, but I now know for sure. It is a church that inspires me, a church that gives me motivation, and it is there that I find myself as I told before, I work for the Ministry of Education, but even though I know that I'm working for and contributing for a great cause in a difficult country like ours, it is the church that keeps calling me. I know I will have to face many challenges because I will be the first woman to be ordained a pastor in Albania, and I know that not everybody will accept it or will not accept it immediately, but this is not enough to make me step back, because I'm strong. I'm actually strong because I have a strong God, and I know that He's calling me to do something He wants me to do, and I'm sure about it now. And yeah, I know I have many sisters and brothers who are praying for me in different parts of the world. And to end this video, I would like to thank everybody, and especially you from the American team, for being supporters, for praying, and for contributing somehow to my faith journey. Thank you, everybody, and goodbye. God bless you.